What makes an ad memorable?
What makes an ad effective?
Does anyone other than Erik and Matt care?
Answers to these questions and everything their wives never wanted to know about advertising await you in this episode of Erik and Matt Like Ads. What up, Matt?
Not too much. What's up, Erik?
It's Friday, even
Yes,
though
it is.
these release on a Thursday.
Oh, yeah. That's good listening.
That's great viewing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should probably welcome back our mothers. Thank you, moms, for watching this. This is episode number something.
Yeah.
In our series, our prolific series. I really feel like we're changing the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way because I've been telling a lot of people, just watch out, right? Things are about to change for everyone and for good.
I just don't want to take heat from the feds like Google and Facebook and everybody are taking right now. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? You don't?
No, I don't have time for that.
I would love to be like deposed in front of Congress or whatever. Is that even the right term? I don't know. But I'd love to have to speak in front of Congress.
What would you say?
I would probably I would flip it on them. I would have a line of questioning for them, you know?
How dare you, sir?
Yeah.
I'm
right.
putting this trial on trial.
Right. Where have all the Cowboys gone?
Answer me, Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm talking to you, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wouldn't do
Coming
that.
in hot.
Yeah. Sure.
So what do we do here again?
We talk about ads at some point.
Oh, yes, ads at some point. By the way, I've really been enjoying this series of historic print ads that you have been posting lately on the LinkedIn.
Thank you.
You've had some real beauts, Clark.
Thank you. Yeah. I a weird thing about me is some years ago I was bequeathed a box filled with old newspapers and old magazines. My grandfather gave them to me. I don't know why he gave them to me. Maybe he knew that I was kind of interested in history. Maybe he was just trying to get rid of a bunch of crap and was like, here, take this. Probably didn't even know it was in the box. And there were a bunch of Life and Look magazines in there, and I was paging through them. Most of them were, I think, right around JFK's assassination. And because it was all Kennedy's and it was all like, whatever. And I was paging through them and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And ever since then, about 3 or 4 times a year, I'll buy 8 or 9 old magazines from the 60s, 50s, 70s on eBay. They're very, very cheap, and it's a nice, clean hobby. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting in my office. I always, for whatever reason, in the last few years, I've had them delivered to the office, and there's a big stack of them just right over that way. And I had a bunch of them, and I was sitting there, and reading them, and I was like, these are great ads. I mean, that's the only reason I read them is for the ads. And I was like, I should be posting these because these are kind of neat. So I'm glad at least one person's enjoying it.
Yeah, I feel like we could use some help on the engagement because I'm watching these things and I'm like, there's a lot of value in these. We got to get these in front of more people, right? So maybe, our moms can maybe hop on LinkedIn, get some LinkedIn accounts, and and then they can also like and share this podcast as well while they're there. So that's double win.
Well, in high school, my mother went to almost every single one of my band's shows. So pretty sure she would be up for it.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait then.
Thanks again, Mom. So should we talk about an ad?
Let's do it.
Okay. Who wants to start?
Oh, right. Yeah. So this one's mine. I brought this one this week, right? So this is my turn. Yeah. So have you ever heard of a thing called the movies? People used to go to theaters to watch them.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yes. Well, there is is it a chain? I guess we'll call it a chain. I don't like the word chain, especially with these people, because I feel like they're so awesome that they deserve a better kind of like descriptor than chain.
So I'm going to stop you right there. I don't think that chain is a bad thing. And I think a lot of people do. And yeah, is Applebee's great? You know, I mean, like that's like the chain that everybody thinks about, right? And, you know, like Applebee's is kind of like the Nickelback of, you know, restaurants where it's like, it's always there. You know what to expect, but you just don't like it.
Yeah, you know what to expect. Everything's going to be microwaved.
Right. Of course. It's not great. But, you know, especially when we're talking from like an advertising standpoint, if people like it, who are we to judge?
True. Good point. Good point. Even if people don't like it, who are we to judge?
Okay. There you go.
I just
Flipped it.
So
on
yeah,
the
this chain of movie theaters, primarily in the great state of Texas, started in Austin, Texas, in 1997. That's right, the year that also brought us the Paula Cole smash hit, "Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?" And I want to encourage our listeners to Google or go directly to wherehaveallthecowboysgone.com. That's all I'm going to say. I promise it'll be worth your effort. Having said that, though, yeah, so we're talking about the Alamo Draft House. The Alamo Draft House. The concept there is it's a movie theater, but they will serve you dinner and they will serve you drinks. They'll even serve you beer. We call that foreshadowing, by the way, Matthew. They'll serve you beer, all right? And they're known for that, but they're also known for their strict cinema-going etiquette, all right? They expect you to mind your manners, to not talk through the movie, to not use your cellular phone, so on and so forth, all right? And if you do, they're going to ask you to leave. And I think that is a great segue. Why don't you show us the ad?
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys actually enjoy treating your customers like a pieces of because that's how I felt when I went to the Alamo Draft House. Okay? You know what? I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy theater. It was too dark in that place for me to find my seat, all right? I was using my phone as a flashlight to get to my fucking seat. So excuse me for using my phone in USA, United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater. I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, all right? I've texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a fuck about what I was doing on my phone, all right? And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me, and I'm sure that's what you do, you know, to rip people off. You take my money, and then you throw me out. You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Draft House or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite. And, you know, I'm going to tell everyone about how you are. And I'm pretty sure you guys are being assholes on purpose. So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money, asshole.
Oh, man. Every time I see that, I love it. Every single time.
Yeah, me too. I you know, when you put that in the doc that we use to kind of share these with each other. I feel like I've seen it before somewhere. Obviously, I don't believe this has ever been run in our region. Although there are, I actually looked today, and it looked like there are some up by Yonkers, unless there's a Yonkers somewhere in Texas also.
Not sure.
Anyways, but I've now watched that probably 20 times in the last 2 days. Not because I was like, oh, I got to find something, some nugget to talk about, but because I was just showing people. And I was like, look at this. This is hilarious, So, yeah.
So what are some of the things that you enjoy particularly about this Alamo Draft House ad?
Number one, the simplicity of the idea, right? Like, they had a voicemail. It's clearly real, right? I mean, you could not hire somebody to sound that real, right? Like when we've all experienced people like that, and that's just it's so authentic. It's not even funny, except it is funny. The simplicity of the idea, and then having the restraint to not make it more than what it is, right? To just play it. And yeah, you've got an opener and a little closing, and that's it. That's got to be my favorite part of it. The message is clear, right? Like, don't worry, this bitch won't be there, right? And that's great, right? Like they clearly know their customer. They know that their customers want to go out, they want to have some drinks, they want to have some dinner, and they want to watch a movie. They want to enjoy that movie. I think we've all been in a theater or a theater.
Yes.
Not to make fun of the drawl, but I think we've all been in a theater where there has been somebody obnoxious or multiple obnoxious people, and it ruins the experience. So, I mean, really, to keep it short and simple, I like the simplicity of it. How about you?
Yeah, no, definitely. It is a simple concept. It just goes to show that you don't necessarily, I'm sure someone charged them way too much money to make that for them, because that's what happens in our industry, right? That's more just like a self-deprecating joke. I don't know what this costs to produce and who really gives a rip. But yeah, it's simple, and it just goes to show it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Like a simple idea where you take, it's brilliant though, right? Someone has to have the stones, first of all. So that's one of the things that I love is they had the stones to do it, because I can hear in certain boardrooms, can't do that. You cannot take something from a real customer and use it against them and put it in a commercial and promote it. People are going to think we're jerks, Gary, so I think the fact that they were willing to do that, they showed some boldness there, right? And me, grab attention, or demand attention, defy expectations, create conversations. I feel like it totally does that, right? Because it does demand attention, because for some of the reasons you mentioned, but also, I mean, so the version that is in this podcast is a censored version, right? There's a version where it's uncensored, and actually I like, and we talked about this, right? I prefer the censored version because I actually think it's funnier. The censored version's funnier, but also I think it's the mystique element, right? By pulling it back a little bit, right? Here's the thing. We don't know what Victoria's up to. All we know is that she has a secret. Okay. And so like, I feel like brands that do that, right? I think it's built into the name of Victoria's Secret. I think that's interesting. I think there's a case to be made about, wardrobe and all that sort of stuff, and without getting too detailed into that, that when you actually hide certain elements, it makes it more intriguing. And it's like the prohibition, right? We know that when you tell a kid not to do something, immediately they absolutely want to do that thing that you told them not to do. So I think that it's very, I think, effective to use that censoring technique. So I like that about it. I think you nailed it, like that people, they don't want a person like that in the theater. They don't want that person there. So anyone who would be like, I can't believe that they took their customer, this woman, this fine, upstanding woman's voicemail and put it in a commercial. Those people are not the Alamo Drafthouse like tribe, right? So like, great, go to like, I don't know, wherever, AMC, you know, or Regal or whatever these other ones are, you know? So yeah, I like that a lot. And yeah, at the end, you know, when they just, you know, they call her Texter, you know, like the fact that they label her as Texter, I don't know. It's such a simple thing as well, but I just thought that that was super well done. And I guess the final thing I'd say about the technique or style of it, which goes along with the simplicity, is by putting the words, two things about this, by putting her words on the screen, it is visually stimulating. It's constantly changing, right? And so it's not quite kinetic type, but it kind of functions like that. And so I think it makes it more visually interesting, and it's stickier as a result. It's harder to not watch it, right?
Sure.
And then the placement of the words that follow the cadence of her speech, the way they make some words larger, some words bolder, like that whole thing. And then how like what is it? Magnited States of America, right? Like, it's funny because you're also thinking, I think she may have had a couple pops,
right?
You know, like she was probably there for most of the movie, had a couple pops, had to go use the restroom, was coming back, and oops, forgot the etiquette. So when she says she didn't know that she couldn't do this, I'm not convinced that she's being totally honest with herself. Well, I feel like they probably made this very clear to her, and you know it's the Alamo Drafthouse. You know, do you live under a rock? This is what they're about.
Right. I mean, maybe I live under a rock because I really didn't know what the Alamo Drafthouse was or all about, but if I lived there, I certainly would.
Well, because you don't live in a market of theirs, right?
Right.
So,
but you know, she gives herself away in her in her speech, right?
Yeah.
She's saying, you kicked me out. I was just trying to use my phone as a flashlight. And then she like talks about how she was, and my texting wasn't bothering anybody anyways. It was on silent. You know, not to like get too far into exactly what she was saying, because it's obviously not the point.
Right. No, but that's actually interesting though. Yeah. Those details can matter, right?
But it's like, yeah, you said you weren't texting, and then you said I was texting and it wasn't bothering anybody. So
yeah. So so I would say that a great ad, and we're talking about it and sharing it. We're not even in one of their markets. This ad allows people that aren't even in market to know about them,
right,
and start to like them. And if I had time in one of their markets and I was going to go see a movie, I would try to find an Alamo Drafthouse as a result of this, right? So I think it's an effective ad. Unfortunately, no matter how clever you are and how great your ads are, if a global pandemic comes along and changes the way people do business, you file Chapter 11, which unfortunately they did on March 3rd of this year. So just under a month ago, they filed Chapter 11, which is the reorganization
the not
chapter. Correct. I think that's 913. Here's the thing. I'm an ad guy, not an.
Yeah, me neither. I was thinking Chapter 7.
Maybe it's 7. I don't know.
Is that the bad one? Who knows? Somebody else.
I don't know. I don't really read books, so I'm not sure. But it's the I love books.
You should open one.
You crack one. So they're going to reorganize, and so I'm excited because sometimes I hear companies go into Chapter 11, and I'm like, man, maybe it should have been that other chapter, you know? But like with this one, it's like, because when I heard that they filed bankruptcy, I was like, oh no, not them. They're the good guys, you know? So I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully they'll get it sorted out and they'll come back, you know, stronger. So.
Yeah, I hope so. I was on their website today, and they have new house rules. I like just about everything about their website. Especially like, I mean, the copy is great, right? They clearly have somebody who knows what they're doing writing the copy. And I think that's a lot more than can be said about virtually any other movie theater, right? Like
Sure,
I don't
sure, sure.
I don't think
Which kind of
AMC.
boggles the mind because like how amazingly written are most movies,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like this is an
yeah,
industry of writers.
right. So I'm on their website, and there is like a little banner across the top that says "New House Rules" as you come back, or something along the lines. And I was just thinking like, oh wow, great. So they seem to have made it. Which now you're giving me bad news, and I'm depressed. I will never see a movie at one of their theaters, but no, hopefully I will.
The fact that that site's still up and is saying that tells me that they're still
Yeah,
in it to win it, you know?
no, of course. And I want to take a step back here to kind of talk about what you mentioned. If I'm ever, it's such a great ad that it gets shared across across markets that they're not even in. I think that's really interesting, but also like could maybe give them an idea of markets to go into.
Oh, yeah,
And
possibly.
also, or if they have plans to expand, that's just like a great thing.
Well, Sonic used to do that, right? Yeah,
Right.
right? Yeah, dude,
Did
look
we
at
literally just say that at the exact same time?
dude.
Did we just become best friends? Anyways, Sonic did this. So I forget who told me, and this is obviously hearsay, and who knows. Somebody told me that they had spoken to somebody that somebody's cousin, sister's brother, that Sonic did that somewhat intentionally, but also just because it was cheaper to, if you have somebody in or a market in New York City, and it's just cheaper to advertise in all of New York, right, than it is to actually target down. But that it ended up giving them a way to understand like the markets that they would want to go in because of social listening and everything like that. These digital channels aren't, like it's not a bad thing, right? Like it's good to have that at your disposal to say like, oh cool, like a lot of people in the Western New York region, let's say, or whatever region have been talking about this or have been sharing it. It's a maybe that's a great place to open a franchise or one of our chains. And I think that's incredibly interesting because it's something that it would have been a lot harder to decide, even just 20 years ago, right? Just from advertising. Obviously, you want to go broad. I'm a big believer in broad. Like I hate narrow targeting because then you're missing your narrow targeting is always going to find your existing customers or customers who are always going to be customers, right? And yes, that's great. You want to make sure that they hear of you and know about you. Broad targeting, broad, reach creates new customers, right? So, I mean, that's to your point, right? So if you were ever in Austin and looking for something to do with your wife on a Friday night or something like that, and wanted to make sure that you weren't interrupted by a texter during a movie, you'd probably go to Alamo.
Absolutely. 100%.
Did any of that make sense? I've had a couple of these.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I love it because I love that your take on the targeting and hyper targeting is actually counterproductive, right? So
Absolutely.
I love that because there's most people that I encounter don't actually think that way. There's still a lot of people that think the way that you and I think, because we agree on that. There's a lot of people that don't, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree. You and I happen to be correct. But Procter and Gamble did this with Febreze. Did you hear about this? They did this with Febreze on Facebook. All right. So Procter and Gamble, they are like the world's largest advertiser, or at least they were the past several years. I don't know what it is, but the point is, if they're not, like they're spending billions of dollars a year. That's their budget, right? So these people know. Their slogan from knowing an insider, from what I understand, is "In God we trust. All others bring data." Okay, so like if anyone, like they measure everything. They measure measurements, right? You know, like, so if anyone's going to know, I would trust Procter and Gamble. So they did a Facebook campaign around Febreze, and that's one of that's one of like the tasty little temptations of digital marketing, right? Is like the ability to hyper target and look how efficient we can be, and there's no waste in your spending, right? So what did they did that model? They did Febreze. Who buys Febreze? I don't know exactly, but it's like it's women. They're 25 to 44 and they have 2 kids and a dog and you know, and whatever. And they spent like millions of dollars. Okay. So you can't say they didn't spend enough, right?
Right.
And they found the results to be just painfully underwhelming.
Yeah.
So they said, all right, let's try something else. Let's open it up. They did like an 18 plus kind of idea. Let's just open it up.
Yep.
Men, women, we don't care. Boom. Febreze sales shot up, right?
Yeah.
And this is Procter
totally
and Gamble. They have more resources than God. So if any, you know, so I think that just is a really great example that punctuates, and that's using digital marketing. And so that's counter to a lot of that idea. So yeah, absolutely. It's yes, you have funnels and there's people that are different points in the funnel.
Of course.
And I think anything that hyper targets is playing the let's get lucky game, or is, I think, too narrow, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not to say that you don't want to get those people, but like, how about this? Like you and I influence each other, right? So, and your coworkers influence you, and your family members and your neighbors. Why would I not want to, as a brand, influence them and have the people that circle you in your life be there? Because do you make every single decision on your own, Matt? I know you're an independent person, but do you make every single decision on your own? Do you ever take the opinion of other people? Do you ever listen to what they say? Yes. And that's why a broader strategy is effective as well, because we are influenced by the people around us.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, so I know Procter and Gamble, you know, did their own little big experiment. I've done my own little experiment, which is just called my career. Genuinely, over the last 5 years of doing digital advertising, I was sitting around thinking, I'm doing this wrong because I'm not getting the results that I need, right? And this is typically, for me, it's typically the world of B2B advertising. So it's, you know, not necessarily, it's tougher in some ways and easier in other ways. So I'm sitting there thinking, my targeting is wrong, right? Like I'm getting down on myself. I'm saying, I'm not good at this.
Targeting.
I don't know how to do this. This is more complicated than I think it is. And finally I'm like, well, let's just try something simple. Let's just open it up. And holy shit, of course, here's the leads that we were looking for.
Wait, so we didn't need Procter and Gamble? We could have just asked Matt Salasco. Look at that.
No, of course not. But I'm here to kind of maybe confirm that, I guess.
No, I love that. And that's the thing. Lived experience is usually the most powerful.
Yeah. And like genuinely, you're going up against so many unknowns when you're talking digital. First of all, can you trust the targeting? So you're trusting Facebook. We already know.
True. Yes.
Like we unintentionally talked about like Facebook being in front of Congress, right? Like early on in the podcast. Right. That was not intentional. That was not foreshadowing. That was just ironic. Isn't it ironic? Yeah. Second of all, do they trust themselves, right? Like there is a ton of research out there, data out there that say there are click farms everywhere. And if you're using any like display network, which for anybody that doesn't know, there's like in feed, which is, just as you're scrolling Facebook, it's there. Mm-hmm. Like that's where the ad lives. Display network is going to be, something a little bit more tertiary, a little bit more third party. Facebook's never going to tell you exactly what third parties you're advertising on. You have no idea. It's programmatic, right? It just goes out there and, all of a sudden you get a ton of clicks. And as you're setting up a Facebook ad, it's going to literally tell you, you'll get more clicks, more reach, more impressions if you click this checkbox, or actually if you don't uncheck this checkbox for the display, or they're whatever they call it. They all call it slightly different things. You're going to get a ton more clicks, and you're going to see your cost per click go way down, but the effectiveness goes way down with it, right? Like, you're getting all of this and it's just eating up your budget because it's just almost all bullshit clicks, or people who accidentally clicked it, or all kinds of different things. So I think there's this isn't the point of this podcast, right? We're not sitting here saying digital is bad. It's just digital needs to be done right. And I think if it can be done in tandem with TV or radio or something like that, I think
it's also about ultimately what does it drive, right? So
effectiveness over efficiency.
Clicks, exactly. Can clicks become then like a vanity metric in a way, right? At the end of the day, are we converting? However you want to define that. And are we selling more things? Is there more interest for our product? Are we selling more things? If we are, some pieces of what we're doing are probably working, right? Yeah.
And certainly there's going to be waste in TV or radio, right? They're, the account executives are going to tell you you're going to reach all kinds of, this better than I do because you live in that space a little bit more than I do, but they're going to tell you you're going to reach all these kinds of people and all, and it's like, yeah, but are they paying attention? Their TV's on, but are they in the room? Right? Or are they going in and getting popcorn? Right. And I think that's an easier pill to swallow, knowing that, you might not have the attention right then and there. You're not always going to have the attention that the account executive is telling you you're going to have. But at least it's not like people in some country with TVs on to try and trick the Nielsen, we
call them Nielsen farms. Yeah. It's
right.
It's a pretty sick practice. I think there's waste in everything, right? I think that's one of the issues. Marketing has many issues and things that people put a lot of focus into that is not necessarily good energy, right, to focus on. And I think this is efficiency to a point, right? But when efficiency becomes God, right, it's like, okay, well, what are we really worshiping here? There's waste in every aspect of life. It's part of being
getting big.
It's part of existence, right? There's waste. We produce waste. You can't even eat all the food. You can't even process all the food that you eat. All right. There's waste. How about, I went there. How about that for vivid mental image? I'm just really trying to up subscribers. I feel like, I know how to get subscriber count beyond our mothers. All right. I know how to do this. Okay. And by the way, on that topic, our mothers are very familiar with this. So this is not an embarrassment to them. But let's talk about whiskey. You're drinking whiskey and I'm a big whiskey fan. So when you make whiskey, you're going to fill that 53-gallon barrel off the still with that new make, right? It's going to go into that charred, in our case, American oak, if we're making bourbon. All right. And are you going to come back in? Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So are you going to come back in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever the period of time is that you're aging it? And are you going to find 53 gallons of aged whiskey in that barrel? The answer is no, you're not going to. Some of it leaks out, and they try to prevent that, right? You don't want it to leak out, but some of it's going to leak out. Some of it's going to evaporate depending on where it is in the warehouse. And some factors, maybe more alcohol evaporates than water. Maybe more water evaporates than alcohol. Some of it's going to get trapped in the barrel because that's what's happening when whiskey ages through expansion and contraction. Temperatures rise, whiskey expands into the wood. drops down, contracts out of it, in and out over time. That's how whiskey ages. Well, when they come back, you're not going to have as much whiskey in that barrel. And they call that what's missing. They call that the angel's share. All right. And the idea is that the angels have been coming in over the years. I guess God works them really hard, and they need a break. And so they come to whiskey, warehouse, aging warehouses, and they sip some of the stuff. Anyway, my point is that's actually the natural process of making whiskey. And it is through that process that you get the really good stuff, right? So there's an acceptable amount of loss that you have to be okay with. Point A. Point B, I always liken this to like people say, like, I want to do business with as many people as I can. I don't want other businesses to get my customers or customers that I think should be doing business with me. So I always say, all right, so you think that you deserve 100% of the marketplace, right? Let's think about that, right? So like 100% of the marketplace shares your values, your worldview, is in this for the same reasons you are. I say, I think that's flawed thinking. And I give them the whiskey example. You don't want 100% of that. You want 100% of the group that is going to be inclined, right? Because they were made for you and you were made for them, right? And that means that when you spend your media dollars, you're going to talk to some people that are not going to be your people. But you know what? That's okay. Because even those people, there's a certain set of people that when you say the right thing, the wrong people become the right people, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a group of people that, you know what? They're not going to do business with me. I still want them to know about me. And actually, I want a group that doesn't prefer me, because if I can create a group that doesn't prefer, you know what I mean? Like, you need that. It has to happen. I do not want to lose those people. I still want to influence them to push them away from me. Right? I don't know who. This is the thing. And this is the flawed thinking, I think, of the hyper targeting. It's the assumption that you can predict which people you're going to repel and which people you're going to draw closer, right? As if they're wearing shirts that you can just pick them out and say like, oh, you're mine, you're not. No, you cannot. No one really knows that. You cannot predict this. So all you can do is try to reach as many as you can with a really powerful message, and then let them choose. And if you do that well, your sales are going to be great, and you're not going to be sitting around trying to like tinker and nickel and dime this thing into oblivion, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to add anything. That was perfect.
What was the time on that?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. That was great. Genuinely.
Thanks, buddy.
That was very, very, it was as long as it needed to be, right?
So what do we do now?
I don't know. I can't believe how closely we agree on this. I was expecting,
it's surprising.
I was a little, honestly, I was expecting a little pushback on like the targeting thing, because I think that a lot of people, actually maybe I wasn't, right? Because of who you are, right? The fact that you are not like the digital agency, right? That's going to sell, oh, you're going to get ROI. You're going to get this ROAS, which I've only been hearing for like the last like year and a half. Is that new? I really don't know. Return on ad spend. It's like,
I'm not as familiar with that particular metric.
I've only heard of it. I mean, somebody started talking about it maybe a year or two ago, and I was just like, what the is that? That like that's stupid. Also, you don't get to ask about, and maybe this isn't necessarily appropriate for this podcast, but you don't get to ask about the R until you've made the I, right?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Maybe we don't know. Like you gotta, like at a certain point, there's a leap of faith. Mm-hmm. The case study doesn't necessarily need to be my case study or your case study. It's just go back to the magazines, the old magazines. You can look at the ones that I have hundreds of these things. The ones that you see a lot of ads from in every single one of them, almost every single one of those brands is still around. The ones where you see smattering, a peppering, you know,
That's
a
interesting.
dip the toe, they're all gone. Or
That's
they're
interesting.
or they've at least gone into some other, you know, form. I'm looking at one on my wall right now. It's International Scout. So International, the big tractor brand. In the 60s tried to do, you know, they were selling trucks. They were selling these little like truck cabins, you know, the fifth wheel, and you know that's what they called them back then. The little fifth wheels that fit on the bed, not fifth wheel.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
I have it on my wall here in my office because it's the only one I've ever seen from International, and I have a lot of these magazines. I think there's a point to be made that they were like, we tried it, didn't really get anything out of it, so we're gonna stop advertising, and we're, you know.
But you said I'm less familiar with that brand, but they're tractors, you said, traditionally?
I think so. And I may be completely wrong, but Dan was in here the other day and he was like, "Oh wow, International," you know, and he mentioned tractors.
Gotcha, because that could be a positioning thing, right? Like where they had built up so much equity around the idea that they make and sell tractors, that they thought,
Sure,
the people that drive tractors would use this thing. And then they made the epic mistake that many brands do, and they put their name on it instead of coming up with a different name for it and building new equity. Yeah.
So I'll be honest, and we'll put this up so for the viewers to see, but it is called the Scout Travelette Travelall by International, which
Oh, I see. Yeah. So maybe that's what's going on.
Is also very long. You may have seen it. I actually posted about it on LinkedIn the other day.
Oh yeah, but is that the one that you said that you thought was like just not well? Yes, I did see that. Yeah.
The copy is all specs and, you know, something that farmers want to read, more deliberate readers want to read, you know. So maybe we've unlocked an insight into why they chose to do it that way when they were making this foray into the consumer market. But going back, it is interesting to see like the ones that advertised most often. I mean, I see Hanes ads constantly, you know. Hanes is still around. They do it well, they do it consistently, and they do it always. You know, Volkswagen, you see a ton of them, right? And I mean, that's something that we've talked about probably on this podcast already. I don't know particularly, but tons of it. Honda, I mean, it's all over, and you can watch. The more interesting thing is Honda starts in the 60s in at least magazine print advertising. Starts in the 60s, and then you see it growing in the 70s and then the 80s, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I'm sure, I don't have any 90s or anything like that, but I'm sure it just explodes, right? And now Honda is one of the most widely bought vehicles in all of America. Is that all the advertising? No, of course not. Is it the advertising plus the quality plus plus all of the other resources? Of course, you know.
Yeah, they did a lot of things well. They made a great product. They advertised it well, you know, experience, and every product they make is amazing. And that's super rare too, right? Like that Honda is so prolific, right? If you we have a Honda generator out at the land.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Pole every time without fail. It is amazing. We had a Honda, that big red 3-wheeler.
Oh, geez. From the 70s?
Yeah, but
I actually know about this thing.
Same deal. And people try to buy these things, and they, in horrible shape, pay big money for these things, right? It's amazing what Honda's done. Anyway, you were going to say something.
I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. Anyways, but I think they did a lot. They did the thing, which is their brand is, I mean, I don't know what they define it as, but it's like they definitely have the quality kind of thing going on, right? And then, they made some really strong commitments, and I'm sure not just to their advertising, I'm sure to the manufacturing, I'm sure to the distribution and all those different types of things. But you can't discount the fact that they are consistent advertisers and that they invest well and they execute well on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but because I haven't done a ton of research on this, but like conversely, you can look at the ones that sort of fall off, right? Like in these magazines that I read, you know, that I'm looking at, you see Contact a lot in the early 60s, and then you start to see it go away. And I don't have the numbers, you know, everything like that, but you don't think of Contact. It's a like medicine brand, similar to what, Halls or NyQuil or something like that. Probably owned by Procter and Gamble, you know, even back then maybe,
or one of the big, you know, yeah.
And you see it starting to go away. And I mean, I couldn't think of anything made by Contact at this point. I don't know if it exists anymore. They sold a lot of, like, it seemed like I don't know, your typical analgesics and things like that, right?
Yeah. Did they have a mouthwash at one point?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember, why do I know of them? I think, I don't know. But yeah, I get it. And that actually would be an interesting, you know, study to see the correlation. Because I mean, our gut and experience in watching the published failures of certain brands does kind of say, if they're less frequent in these things, and then you don't see them, that's probably has something to do with it. But it would be interesting to see what are the exceptions to that. Right. What companies if that were to be the case with the Alamo Drafthouse. Oh, what you really needed to understand was at that time there's a global pandemic, and like no one could go to the movies, and that's what put them out of business, and they couldn't survive, right? Right. Which of course, hopefully, is not going to be their case. But there are some instances where, yes, maybe they were doing maybe not the best job with something, but it was something else really that did it. But it could be also that they weren't doing the greatest job with it, and then this other it made them susceptible, or it left the door open. Like there's some businesses that went out of business now, or they're like, you know, or new products that have been adopted because it was the timing that took a great idea in like video conferencing, let's say, like what we're doing right now,
just gonna say
and blew it up, or took something like department stores that were on their way out anyway and just said, hey guys, this is it, it's over. And you know, Macy's was folding before this. Lord & Taylor probably wasn't that far behind them. It took a pandemic to put Lord & Taylor out.
Yeah, you know? Right. And I don't want to get into this because this is a completely different conversation, but I do have this feeling that department stores are going to come back at some point, right? Not necessarily in that like golden era, like Woolworths type, you know, beautiful, whatever. But I think there's going to be a need for that. We'll talk about that another day.
Okay, cool. Have we drawn this out enough yet, you think? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Are people sick of us yet? I don't know.
Our moms?
Yeah. I like
Thanks for hanging in there, Mom.
I like how we assume that our moms are going to listen because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hey, this has been a fun one.
Yeah, I think so.
And I felt like a very rich conversation ensued at the end there. I was not expecting any of that, but I loved it. And I feel there's going to be a lot of cool little snippets we'll be able to borrow.
I agree.
You know? Yeah,
are we done? Sounds like we're done.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we should be done.
Let's just do it for another hour.
First hour's in the books. We're going for hour number 2. This is the Colin Coward Show.
The Jets quarterback. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
Vegas, am I right? Colin Coward joke. Anyway, I like him. I think he's a good program. Anyway, don't really listen to him ever.
No, me neither.
Hey, man, I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
I plan on it.
Good.
All right, buddy.
This is fun. See ya.
See ya. Wow, that was a good one.
Oh, I assumed that we were going to cut that way before.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Well, because I started vaping.
What was the vaping? Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I'm like, this guy, he's a loose cannon. You get 4 fingers of Elijah Craig in him, and look what happens. Where have You know what? I feel like that song. Maybe we'll work that song into this, because that song came out the same year that the business that we're going to be. I shouldn't have said that. You can't use that. You can't strike that. Strike, Patrick. Cut that. Take 2. You know, maybe we'll bring up that Paula Cole song. And why did I think of you as a cowboy? Think about this. You see what's going on here? There's some shit happening here, because I thought of you as a cowboy, and that Paula Cole song, querying Where Have They Gone, came out the same year that this brand was founded, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, same year.
You just know that, like, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone came out?
Well, there's certain songs, because memory is powerful, especially when connected
Sure.
to times in your lives. And I was a freshman in college, fall of 97, and that's around that area. So, like, is it possible that that song came out sometime in 1996?
Sure.
It's possible, but I remember it really prolifically in the fall of 97 when I was a freshman, first
Cool.
semester.
All right. Yeah. And anyway, who's the weirdo? I'm the one that owns the domain. So
Yeah, right. Seriously, who is the weirdo? 2 great questions. Where have all the cowboys gone, and who is the weirdo?
and also,
So excellent. I like you a lot, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah.
I like you a lot too.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right. And 3, 2,